Welcome to Let's Talk to Animals. My name is Shannon Cutts, and that cute little cheep you just heard is Petal Cutts, my new sidekick and co-host for season 4 of Let's Talk to Animals. We are very animal friendly here, so if you hear barks or chirps in the background or the tap, tap, tap of little box turtle or tortoise toes, you'll know that you're hearing little cameos from my personal animal interspecies family. So here on season 4, we've been doing things a little differently than we have for seasons 1, 2, and 3, when I interviewed a whole host of amazing guests from around the world, many of whom work as fellow animal intuitives and communicators, pet psychics and mediums, holistic practitioners, aromatherapists, energy workers, and light workers. For this season, however, I moved into the role of the featured guest as well as your friendly neighborhood hostess. So I hope you're enjoying season 4 thus far. We will have some special guests coming up, and that's planned for this fall. But for now, you and I are together, and we have been talking about a range of topics that come up quite frequently as I'm sharing with people who are new at animal communication how it works. So we're kind of going back to basics. What is it all about? When do you need it? Can you use it at any stage of an animal's life? Does animal communication still work even after your pet has crossed over and is now on the spirit side? Then you'll want to listen back into our archives to catch up on everything that you've missed, especially if you're new. You can find us over at animallovelanguages.com/podcast. And you can also find us at Buzzsprout and on all of your favorite streaming services. We also have a video version over on YouTube. You can find me under Shannon Cutts, and it's under Animal Communication Talks. That's the playlist. So for today, I want to tackle one of the biggest questions that people have about the work that I do as an animal intuitive and sensitive, animal communication in general, and that is, where does it fit in the bigger picture of taking good holistic care of your pet companion, your animal companion? When is the right time to add animal communication to your companion animal's wellness toolkit? When is it the right moment to seek out a communicator first rather than trying something else first and kind of just moving on down your checklist until you find what works? And probably most importantly, what is animal communication not designed to do? For today, where I'm going to start is the ongoing debate about fixing our animal companions versus communicating with them. We touched on this a little bit 2 episodes ago when I shared a very personal story of how animal communication has played a significant role in transforming our own itchy, anxious dachshund's life. Flash Gordon is much the better for having access, free and ready access to an animal communicator living right in the same house with him. But that is not the only tool that we have used in order to improve his quality of life, improve his emotional and his mental life, as well as his physical life. And one of the big things that comes up a lot, especially when somebody is thinking about using an animal intuitive or an animal communicator for the first time, is, can you fix my animal? There's something wrong. There's the presentation of the problem, and then there's the desire to find a snappy solution, a quick and easy fix. And this is so much what our culture is about, right? And it's not even so much that we necessarily are hoping for a quick fix. It's that it feels like that's all we have time for. Our lives are so jam-packed. They're so overloaded with so much input all day, every day, and often what happens with especially if you've got a full-time job or you're taking care of your family full-time, the animals can grab at your attention most easily, usually during certain pockets of time during the day. Often those pockets of time are around moments when they have urgent needs, like, I really need to go to the bathroom, or I'm really hungry, or I'm really thirsty, or I'm really bored. And so we're not seeing our animal companion at their very best. We're seeing them when they really need something from us. And the truth is, for most of our animals, is if we don't give it to them, they don't really have any other agency, any other way of getting it And if they do try to use their own creativity to get their needs met, that's often labeled as causing trouble or a problem or something that needs to be fixed. And so we don't really often have the luxury of getting the big picture perspective of our animal and the whole spectrum of states that our animals move into and out of throughout the day. We just really are aware of them and interacting with them around these more urgent needs that they have. And often we're, trying to feed. I know for me, having 4 animals to care for, we all get hungry at the same time. We all get sleepy at the same time. We all need to pee at the same time. And so our schedules can coincide at moments when my animal might need something and I also need something rather urgently. And so it can be really challenging to stay calm and feel confident that all is well and that I'm doing a good job as an animal guardian and a pet carer, that everyone's getting equal time with me, that I'm not losing my mind trying to take care of everyone, and that, sweetheart, this little precious petal bird has suddenly gotten very chirpy. And boy, are we glad, huh? It's music to our ears. And so we often come to our first experience of animal communication kind of bearing these burdens. Maybe feeling guilty, maybe feeling anxious, maybe feeling irritated. I've had a lot of that with our dachshund Flash Gordon, because many of you know, if you've been tuning into the show for a while, or if you have been following me on some of our social platforms, you know that I moved in with my mom after my dad passed because she had a serious hip injury and broke a bone in her leg. And I was never home anyway. And so in doing that, I gained kind of a couple of extra loves, but also a couple of extra responsibilities. So I've really struggled with this a lot personally. I don't want you to think, listening to this, that I'm like preaching at you or telling you you're doing something wrong. No, I've been there. And some days I'm still there, right in the thick of it. And there is that temptation. I want to fix the problem. I just need to get it off my to-do list. I need to take it off my plate. I need to figure this out and quickly so I don't blow a gasket and disappoint myself, as well as kind of giving whoever is creating the inner tempest inside me the short end of the stick. So, of course, there's this temptation to come to animal communication and say, I want to have a sit down with my pet, or maybe I want to have a knockdown drag out with my animal family. And I want to figure out how we can restore peace and sanity in our daily flow of interspecies family activity. I do want to acknowledge that when I first started hiring animal communicators and using animal communicators, which was many years before I discovered that I have been hearing animals for years and can develop these same intuitive pathways in myself to actually offer this service to others. Yes, absolutely. At first, I went to animal communicators because I wanted to fix a problem. That was topmost in my mind. My earliest experiences with animal intuitives and animal communicators and pet psychics was when an animal would stop eating, or when an animal was ill, or when an animal was ready to transition, or when an animal was acting out in ways I just didn't understand what was going on, or when an animal went missing. I've had 2 big missing animal issues in my flock life to date. And so worked very closely with talented communicators when those situations were unfolding. It took me some years to recognize that animal communication has other uses, and actually far more valuable uses. I transitioned into a place where every 6 months or so, I would work with a professional communicator just to have kind of a family meeting and just to check in, especially when I would add new family members. Sometimes there would be jealousy, or there would be agitation or anxiety, and just wanting to talk things out. I would use these meeting times to just kind of find out, how is everyone liking their enclosures or their habitats or their casas? How is everyone liking their menu every day? How does everyone feel about their daily activities? So in times when things were going well, I didn't just kind of coast until the next problem or issue cropped up, I got in the habit of creating these times, these sacred hour or two every 6 months or so, when we would just kind of have a little check-in. And it was around that time that I started my own journey to becoming a professional animal intuitive. And so let me tell you, my animals have had a lot of practice talking with me, because they have been my mentors and my teachers and my guides, primarily even over my human teachers and mentors. And it's been a wonderful ride, a wonderful journey for us thus far. But I will be honest, most of my new clients and even many of my returning clients come seeking problem resolution or help during kind of what I would call a crisis moment, just rescuing a new animal in need or relinquishing an animal that isn't able to integrate, or helping to shepherd an animal through their final transition, or reconnecting with a pet in spirit, or navigating a difficult dietary or health issue, these moments when we just know we need a little extra support. And that is awesome. It's one of the favorite things about the work that I do, is inviting the animal, the one that maybe is stirring the pot, so to speak, or disrupting the regular flow of daily life and kind of needing a little bit more support themselves. We can invite them to the conversation. We invite them to the table. We say, what's going on? What are we missing? What do you need or want? Or why are you doing this? Or how are you feeling? Or any number of questions, both the obvious questions and the non-obvious questions. As far as me personally, because I am an objective third party who doesn't partake in daily life, and because I am invested in, first and foremost, serving as that animal's voice and that animal's advocate, and receiving their unbiased, unvarnished truth, sharing that with the animal's guardian or foster parent or forever mom or dad or person. These are very exciting conversations. They're very dynamic, and often they reveal some major aha moments that would have otherwise never come to light. So it can be a pretty powerful experience having these kinds of conversations with animals. What also really helps is that I never read the notes. I do ask my clients to share any questions, any specific issues, especially because we usually have kind of a time box. We're working in maybe half hour or hour segments. And so I want to make sure we don't miss out on asking specific questions, but I never look at those or address those questions until the end, because I don't want that information to bias me, to kind of block my ears or blind my sight to something that the animal might share that doesn't maybe dovetail exactly with how their human has perceived what's going on with them to date. You know, sometimes we can look at an animal behavior and we can say, oh, I think this is why it's happening. And we could be right. We could also be wrong. And trust me, again, not preaching to you, I am totally in this same boat and have often had my animals set me straight and teach me in the process and amaze me and realize that, yeah, this is something that is a simple shift, or it's been right in front of my face the whole time. And I haven't had the eyes to see. I didn't make the connection. Why am I sharing all this with you? It's the foundation of what animal communication was born to do. Why it exists at all is to hear from that other being, that love or that family member of ours, and find out what's going on with you directly. I call this kind of the saltwater taffy generation. We're moving out of the very intellectually driven mindset and into more of an expansive, enlightened, and multi-level and multi-sensory experience of life, where intuition, these abilities, these gifts have always been with us. They've never left us. We've left them. And so we live in this generation that we're in right now, these few decades, when we really get to make a choice. We can cling to the old school of thought that this stuff is all very, very airy-fairy and woo-woo. And if we can't nail it to the wall and label it, it doesn't exist, and it certainly doesn't have any validity. we can go all the way to the other extreme and ignore all of the very wonderful information that has come and continues to come out of our high level use of our intellect. That big prefrontal cortex of ours really is good for something, and we can just float. That tends to be a very ungrounded kind of experience, so there's no foundation there. Or we can find our place somewhere in the middle, and we can say, okay, animal communication, like conversation in its own way, it's information gathering, it's collecting data, broadening our awareness and our understanding, having these productive dialogues that can inform how we set up our interactions with the beings we love and care for the most. That's really where we are right now in the evolution of our culture. We can choose, do I want to give this a try? But then saying yes to something like animal communication that really has its roots in the intuitive senses, what some call the psychic senses, telepathy, or the four clairs. We also have to understand that don't want to go all the way to the other extreme, and that's the be all and end all, and that's the solution to every problem. It's part of it, and I would submit it's at the root. It's where we probably want to start, and then we learn what we need to learn, and then we develop a plan from there. And that's really where you can kind of get people going, well, can you fix my animal? There's something going on. No, I can't fix your animal. You may need training. You may need veterinary care. You may need energy work. You may need dietary change. You may need change how your day is structured. There's so many different ways. But what I can do is I can share with you your animal's perspective on what's going on. I can help you gather the information that you need in order to fix the problem, if in fact it is a problem that's rearing its head and needs attention, or somehow adjust the flow of your family life so that that animal is able to find balance and peace and comfort and connection in the way that they find most supportive and beneficial for their own soul path. And so when somebody says, well, what's the difference between animal communication and animal training, for instance? It's a world of difference. Animal communication is leveling the playing field so that everyone has an equal voice. Nobody needs to be trained. And if there's anyone on this planet that knows how well our animals can train us, it would be yours truly. I have kept company with many, many animals over the decades, and they have all trained me pretty quickly and fairly thoroughly, and I never even knew it was happening for most of it. We may need training. It may not be our animals who need the training at all. In fact, often we're the ones who are just missing all the obvious signals and signs, and so we're the ones that need training the most. Our animal may need some training. As with animal communication, often I am speaking with animals that have had some kind of trauma in their past. They have had some abuse, or they have been abandoned or relinquished, or they've come from families where that family has gone through some kind of crisis, or they haven't been able to get along with somebody else in their interspecies family, human or non-human. And so that animal may be coming in with some trauma or some emotional disruption that has kind of temporarily changed the nature of their character and how they are able to be in their home space, with their people, with other animals in the family. When I first got my new cockatiel, Petal, I automatically assumed that she would respond to millet as a training treat. And I would present it to her, and she would just look at me like, what am I supposed to do with that? And I realized, just because all of my other parrots have adored millet doesn't mean that parrots come out of the egg pre-programmed to recognize millet and realize it tastes good and want it. I had to offer it to her. I had to get her comfortable with it. I had to be patient while she decided on her own to try it. And now she's a millet addict, just like all of my other parrots. But sometimes that training is needed. And so animal communication is one of the ways that we find out what's needed. Now we may find out this animal just doesn't know how to be with other dogs or other cats or other birds, or maybe we find out that this animal doesn't want those kinds of interactions, at least not right now, because they have some kind of lingering emotional depth charge that feels negative or scary to them. And so they're going to need some training. They may need some help letting go of their toxic emotions. They may need some body work to help shake it off, literally. They may need to go to classes with their human where they both learn safe and healthy ways that animal can learn how to be in a family, how to be in a community. But those are things that will come out of an animal communication session. That is not something that animal communication itself is designed to address. Now, sometimes what happens, and it's pretty cool when it happens, animal communication itself, just having a deep, heartfelt, unconditionally loving conversation can actually, quote unquote, fix an issue, because the issue itself is rooted in misunderstanding. Here's a great example. Within a year's time, I added not one, but 2 reptiles to our interspecies family. The first reptile, Malty, my redfoot tortoise, she's now 9. She came along, and my cockatiel, Pearl, who was then 15, was pretty pissed. I'll just be honest. He was used to being an only bird. He'd been an only bird his whole life. He'd been with me since he was a 5-week-old chick. And he just wasn't used to sharing me with anyone. And he got kind of moody and bitey and defensive when Malty came along. And suddenly here's this other being who's taking up a lot of my time and my attention and my focus and my emotion. I mean, our animals can feel when our attention shifts, when our emotions are connected to another being, when our thoughts are centering around something or someone else other than them. And they feel that withdrawal, and they may begin to grieve. They may begin to act out. They may withdraw and shut down, all kinds of different things. And so I was already kind of aware that this was happening, especially because I didn't know enough at that time to kind of prime the pump, so to speak, and let him know in advance that she was coming along. In fact, Malty was a real impulse ad, not what I would recommend, but it's what I did at the time. He was not happy with it. And I was already thinking about how might I bring this topic up with the animal communicator I was using at the time, when Malty ran away, and she was gone for 6 days. And I found her on the 7th day. And in the interim, it's a pretty amazing story, a different turtle was rescued to me, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the space of that 6-day period when she was missing. And the 3rd time that Bruce came to me, my former box turtle, who is now rewilded himself, he was almost hit by a car, and a couple who was driving along saw him and picked him up and brought him to me, and I agreed to foster him. And that didn't last long. It quickly turned into an adoption. And about an hour later, I found Malty. So all of a sudden, poor Pearl has not 1, but 2 new shells in the family, and neither one did I even talk to him about it. So he was pretty ticked off, and it was really affecting our connection. And we are soulmates. He's my soul bird, and he has always been my soul bird. Now he's back with me in the form of Petal. This is the 4th time he's been with me during this incarnation. It's a pretty remarkable story, and that's for another podcast episode. But he was pretty mad. I worked with 2 different communicators to help soothe the ruffled feathers, so to speak. And he stayed mad and stayed mad and stayed mad until the communicator finally said to him, "Do you realize that before Bruce joined your family, he didn't have a home? He was really hungry, and he was really thirsty, and he was really scared and lonely." And that changed everything. Pearl said to me through the communicator, "He didn't have a home? Oh, well, then of course he has to stay." It was a misunderstanding. He didn't understand, and I didn't know enough to realize that I could explain it to him with my own words and my own mental pictures and my own emotions. And so everything shifted back towards more of a normal, strong interconnection, just kind of regrounding into the trust that had been a little bit frayed at the edges, and actually enjoying the adventures of these 2 new shelled family members together. And it was very important as a part of our journey that Pearl understood that he was the patriarch of our family. He was the senior. He ruled the roost, so to speak, and he was needed. And I tried to involve him as much as possible in everything I did. Even when I went outside, I got a little travel cage for him, and we would go outside together to take care of the shells in their enclosures. So that is an instance of a time when, yes, animal communication, it looks from the outside looking in, it looks like we fixed a problem. But what we really did was we had a heart to heart and discovered there really wasn't a problem at all, so to speak. It was just a misunderstanding. And it was also a real wake up call to me to realize that my impulse decisions, no matter how heartfelt and well meant, have repercussions for others besides myself. It really challenged my human centric view of our family life and really made me stop and think and resolve to check my impulsivity and consider how it might be impacting others before I just go ahead. If I don't say yes to an animal, that doesn't mean they're doomed. If I'm saying yes and it's not the right choice for me and everyone that I've already made a commitment to, then I'm actually preventing the right person from saying yes to the animal that's meant for them. What's been the most important part of my own learning journey is recognizing that if I really, truly, truly crave and desire and am committed to building an inclusive community of equals in my interspecies family, then it all starts with initiating conversations. It starts with asking, not telling. It starts with questioning everything I know about what it means to care for an animal and whether these animals that I'm caring for truly depend on me, or whether perhaps it may be the other way around. I depend on them, or we're interdependent. And then in that case, how healthy is our interdependence and how equal is our independence? How much weight is given to each voice in our interspecies family. I hope that this podcast episode has been helpful and enlightening for you. If you've been wondering whether animal communication is something you'd like to experience, perhaps for the first time, or you've been wondering how might learning animal communication deepen your connection with your own interspecies family and open up some new vistas for conversation, I always love teaching new students how to access their own inner intuitive pathways to begin to facilitate these dialogues in their own homes. And that's my dream, is that someday what I do won't be a thing that only some people do. It will truly be awake and active for all of us. And every student I teach, I see them carrying the flame out into the world, and slowly but surely, one human at a time, bringing that dream to life. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do all the usual stuff that you already know I'm going to say, like subscribe, share, and reach out. Especially if you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, you have a guest you'd like to hear from that I haven't had this on the show yet. If you have a story of your own, just share. If you'd like to share your experiences as a pet parent of how animal communication has supported you and your animal family, I'd love to hear about it. Of course, you can find us over at animallovelanguages.com/podcast. You can listen to all 4 seasons. You can find us also at letstalktoanimals.buzzsprout.com and over at YouTube under the handle Shannon Cutts in the playlist Animal Communication Talks. So doing these episodes every 2 weeks for 2023, and I look forward to being with you again in 2 weeks to share a new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. For now, I send you all my love. Talk to you soon.